Welcome to the Merrick NHL podcast. On this episode, Cleve and I review the Rolling Thunder Review documentary on Netflix about Bob Dylan and Bob Dylan's album from 1977, Desire. Check out the talk. We'll see you there. All right, Merrick here. Before we go into this review of the Rolling Thunder Review and Bob Dylan's album Desire, I wanted to preface this podcast because we failed to mention a few things in this podcast. One thing is the Rolling Thunder Review in 1976 was not a commercial success for a tour. It was very ambitious, but it was strange. Bob Dylan insisted on going to small venues around the country, and he had a large cast of musicians and artists with him, kind of a weird troupe of mismatched acts that came together on the Rolling Thunder Review. And I feel like the Bob Dylan was searching for something in this, maybe to rediscover himself, going back to his more roots from the 60s and that hippie culture of the late 60s. And now this is the mid to late 70s when things have gotten a lot more commercial and just different than they were when he started out in the 60s. So Bob Dylan says he doesn't remember anything about the Rolling Thunder Review and in the video documentary, but also it's important to note that it was just a one segment of his life and this tour, but it wasn't a commercial success. And I think it was never really structured as a way to do so because they went to small venues on small towns and they had a huge list of players and acts, mismatched, weird acts in the Rolling Thunder Review. I guess they were kind of trying to be weird on purpose. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this strange talk about the Rolling Thunder Review. And Cleve is not really a Bob Dylan fan, so that's a different perspective than mine. So, check out this talk on the Rolling Thunder Review and Bob Dylan's album Desire. All right, welcome back to the podcast, Cleve. I guess this is our first podcast of 2025. And before we start our new podcast, Cleve and Merrick Take Over the World, which should be coming up pretty soon. So we're going to have to get that podcast up and going. But until we get started with that, we just wanted to keep staying current a little bit. So, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. What's been up with you, Cleve? What you been up this year? Up to?
Well, so far, right now I'm editing the second book in the Gunpowder Magic and Lead.
Yes.
I've already written it. It's called Guns, Grimoires, and Glory. And
I'm excited.
Right now I'm in the editing phase. I was going to have it before Christmas, but I didn't get a chance to edit it by then because Christmas happened. Yeah. And then,
we have to keep Christmas from coming. No, sorry.
Yeah. So, but it's supposed to be edited by next Sunday, and it's going to come in on time.
That's cool.
But I've been working my fingers to the bone on it.
That's awesome, and I'm looking forward to reading it myself too. So that should be exciting. Looking forward to that. Yeah.
That's about it. It's all been working.
Yeah, that's a lot. So since we had the last podcast, I did go see the War of the Rohirrim, and we talked about this. But I got to give a shout out to Schulman's Movie Bowl and Grill. They gave me this nice commemorative hammer from the War of the Rohirrim, and I think they may still have them. And Schulman's Movie Bowl and Grill, they've got 3 locations. One's in Bay City, Texas. One's in Sherman, and one's in Corsicana. This is kind of cool. You could actually do a lot of things with it. You can make it a shorter hammer, I guess, I don't know. This thing kind of comes off. You can make it but here's the secret to this hammer I want to show you is, that doesn't work. Okay, here we go. I don't know why they do that. Okay, get this back on here. But anyways, you could actually put stuff in here. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you could, there's like a compartment, I think. You can put your popcorn in here. Or maybe this could be like a beer holder. I don't know. Just, my grog. I don't know. But anyways, this is pretty cool. I think it's a nice, cool collectible. I wasn't talking in the microphone. I don't know if you could hear me. I think it's a nice collectible for, if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings and the War of the Rohirrim. It's just a small part of the Lord of the Rings Tolkien-esque kind of mythology, if you like that. So I guess, speaking of Tolkien, anything new in your center of the world?
Yes, I got something for Christmas. Let me take it out of its box here. And it's Lord of the Rings as well. And I smoke these occasionally. but it's my
Old
pipe.
Toby. That's
It's a
that's cool. Total Gandalfing out right now. That's really cool.
yeah.
Oh yes. Now that
America should know
oh
better.
yes, I love it. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
I haven't smoked it yet, but it is a real actual pipe. It's a Rivendell pipe.
yeah. Well, that's cool. I was smoking some
Church
cigars
warden.
the other day, and a good cigar or a good pipe tobacco is a nice, pleasant thing on occasion. So that's good.
America should know better.
Eric should know better. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about Bob Dylan stuff because right now the Bob Dylan movie is out in the theater. A Complete Unknown, but that's only like one small segment of Bob Dylan's life. So they had the movie out. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but A Complete Unknown, and it actually segments the first 5 years of Bob Dylan's career, but we decided to talk about something maybe not as current as that. Is that 10 years into that after that movie, and after 65 in 1976, he did a kind of a show called the Rolling Thunder Review. And so, if you hadn't heard of it, there's a documentary on Netflix. I thought we'd talk about that a little bit. Had It did have Joan Baez in the Rolling Thunder Review, and it's really kind of strange. Actually, it's a really strange time period in Bob Dylan's life, to be honest with you. It came right before the album Desire, which a lot of the songs on that in that he actually sang. But yes, so that documentary is on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it actually was by Martin Scorsese. I can say it right now. Rolling Thunder Review.
Scorsese.
Scorsese.
Yeah.
I didn't say it right. And I'm a big Bob Dylan fan, so I like even some of the more maybe not as much some of the less glamorous sides of Bob Dylan. But yeah, so this is different, a lot different. And one thing I noticed about this is that I don't know if Bob Dylan is he's not just one person. I think he's been like a million different people across his life. He seems like a totally different person than the young Bob Dylan from the Free Willin' Bob Dylan, or another side of Bob Dylan, or bringing it all back home. So, did you get a chance to watch the documentary? What'd you think of it?
I watched about 80% of it. Then I had to turn it
Oh
off.
God! Well, it's pretty crazy. It's weird. They had even like poets in there. There was Allen Ginsberg, I guess, who's a poet. The guy,
Who I can't
yeah,
stand.
he reminded me of the Tobias character from Arrested Development. Did you see that Arrested Development?
Yeah.
The guy who was
yeah. I've got some thoughts.
he was an analyst and a therapist, so he was the first analrapist. I don't know if you, so that was a very weird. Joan Baez was in it, and I guess another guy who was in that is Rambling Jack Elliott.
Boy, did he ever.
Yeah, it was a weird group of people. Sharon Stone, I guess he met Sharon Stone when she was super young. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and she was super
Yeah,
hot,
she
too,
was. Joni Mitchell was there for time to time, and okay, I gotta tell you, like, let's just be honest.
The violinist girl, she was pretty
Which
hot
one?
too.
Joni Mitchell?
The violinist.
Oh yeah, the
No.
violinist.
There she is, right there.
Oh yeah. No,
Is
no.
that her?
That
No, that's
that
not her.
what you were watching right there, I think, was Patti Smith. Now I gotta tell you,
Oh, that was
Patti Smith.
Oh my
She
gosh.
seemed whacked out of her brain. We were like,
Yes, she told the story. Oh my
we were like
god.
googling it. Was Patti Smith on drugs? And she claimed she wasn't, but she seemed like she was just on another level of high or something when she was talking.
That story that she told right before she sang there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just.
It was
I
nuts.
guess was people back in the 70s just so starved for entertainment that anything counted for that? I guess was at the height of the
don't
drug
know.
culture? Was this at the end of the drug culture, or is this like the beginning?
This is like a hipster type, hippie type thing, but it wasn't the hippie type. It was like towards the end of
Yeah,
it.
I think.
This is right before the disco
Yeah.
era.
I think it was like when the hippie culture was burnt out. It was getting to the very
Yeah. There's Ginsberg.
end. Yeah, highfalutin. Yeah, in the documentary, they had Bob Dylan saying, he was a great poet, but he wanted to be a singer, and he was not. It was like
Right.
really
Yeah.
bad. Yeah, this shows like a different era in Bob Dylan's life that I think was coming to his career was, I'm not saying winding down, but it was not a high point of his career in my opinion. But there were parts of that album Desire that I really liked. There's a couple songs on there. Um, just like the Bob Dylan movie, it wasn't completely flattering. There are parts where Bob Dylan seems to be a bit like he is trying to be cool. You know what I mean? Like he's just trying anything. He goes to see Kiss, and Kiss is wearing makeup. And so he says, that'd be kind of cool if I painted my face white. You know what I mean? That's where he said he saw that got the thing. It's just like he was open to trying anything. It made me also think that maybe Bob Dylan at certain times in his career was just about, trying to get attention, shock value. Like, well, a lot of artists today will do things to get attention. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it didn't, he had a very good career, so it didn't necessarily like go badly for him in a sense. But I mean, he's still alive, but he's only like
Hmm.
83 or 84 right now. I think he's not in the best health. I don't think. But so the Rolling Thunder Review is a documentary of the series of concerts that he did in 1976. It has people on there like Ronnie Hawkins and Sam Shepard, of course, Allen Ginsberg. And I got to tell you, like the Patti Smith just seemed crazy. Is the lady with the violin? Is her name Scarlett Riviera? I think.
Yes, yes, Scarlet Riviera.
Yeah,
That's
she
her.
was very,
I
very
liked her.
intriguing.
I
Yes,
liked
a
her.
great violinist, and that's where she also plays on the album Desire. So she's on that album Desire.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I think this is the probably midway through his career, and I think towards the end of the '70s, he really kind of fell off a cliff musically. And then he had his gospel era, and Bob Dylan had a gospel era after that, which was "Slow Train Coming," "Saved," and I think there's another one that he did. I didn't mind the gospel era; it was kind of entertaining to me. I liked it. It was also, I mean, from a Christian point of view, it was interesting to hear gospel songs by Bob Dylan. So yeah.
Hmm.
This I don't know if we want to go straight into the album, but maybe this will be a shorter video. What other thoughts do you have on the Rolling Thunder review on Netflix? It may not be your cup of tea as far as musically and everything.
Well, I agree with Bob Dylan when he was talking about. He's like, I don't remember anything on that tour.
Yeah,
I don't remember it. What? I thought that was kind of funny
yeah,
because I was like, man, you probably don't want to remember anything.
yeah.
He kind of ended up, talking about that. But my thoughts on it, real briefly, were that I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I like some Bob Dylan stuff, but I don't know. It seems like It seems like on that tour when he was singing songs, I was as he was singing some of them because Martin Scorsese actually played like full
Hmm.
songs of him on stage, and I was like, is he just making this up as he goes along?
Yeah,
It's like my toaster's flying high in the sky with wings, and then it comes down and dies on the ground. And I'm
I
like,
don't remember that one, but I will say
I was like, I was
from
like,
a
what?
Bob
No, I made
But
that
from a
up.
Bob Dylan, I've actually studied Bob Dylan a lot. And I love Bob Dylan's music, but you got to understand, like he has like 50 albums, and not all of them are hits. They're really not all of them are great. So Bob Dylan, like the Bob Dylan movie covers 1960 to 1965 when he went electric.
Hmm.
It didn't take up. And my favorite album, I believe, is from '66 or '67, which is Blonde on Blonde. And right after Blonde on Blonde, he got in a motorcycle accident, and from '66 he didn't tour until like 1974, where he got a band called The Band. I don't know if you remember The Band,
Hmm.
where he had them tour behind him. And so apparently, like at that time in 74, 75, his backup band was The Band. I don't know if that was the name they gave for them, but that had Robbie Robertson. It had Levon Helms, and they had that great song The Weight. It's a great song, and they have Up on Cripple Creek. I don't know if you like the band, but I like the band.
Hmm.
But they were his backup band, and then I guess they went on to do their own thing after that, which they became greatly a great classic rock band, in my opinion. The band, and so
Hmm.
some entrepreneurial promoter said, "Let's get Bob Dylan back on the road, and we'll just call it the Rolling Thunder Review. We'll just throw a bunch of people in there and get after it." I think that's what it was. And they even got Joni Mitchell, and Joan Baez is what I'm trying to say, not Joni Mitchell, but Joni Mitchell was on there. But I think what's something interesting too is you could tell that I think Joan Baez and Bob Dylan had an off and on love affair, and then in this is past that. That's way past it. I feel like it alluded to a little bit of this about Joan Baez is that she kind of went a little off the rails on this one, or at least Bob Dylan said she did, where she started doing this thing where she was dressing up like him. Did you see that part in the video? And she actually looked pretty
Mm-hmm.
similar to him when she was dressed up like him. What do you think about that? But I think
Mm-hmm.
she was just garnering for attention. But anyways, so I think they had an off and on love affair, and at this point, I think it was way over. But they're just doing the shows and the songs. But what I've noticed about Bob Dylan is he got tired of doing all his old hits, and so a lot of times what he would do is he would make a different version of his hit, which was not usually as good as the original, where he'd sing it differently or just speed through it. It's like he didn't even want to perform it, and uh, so I think that some of the performances on this one are similar to that. But I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, sorry.
What's your cat's name again?
Uh, this is
Shadow's
Shadow.
already.
She somehow squeezes under the door, and there's not like any room under the door, and so she wasn't
Yeah,
in
I
here,
got
but now
that happened
she's
last time, which is no problem. But I was like, so
she hears me in here, and she can't stand not being in the room with
that's
me.
fine. It's fine. So the Rolling Thunder review, I think, is kind of like not a low point, but I think it's the beginning of a low point for Bob Dylan's career. Whereas towards the end of the '70s, he was kind of burnt out. I think he had like a few other albums after this that were good. There were Blood on the Tracks, I think, that he had, which was a kind of a comeback album. I think it was after Desire or before Desire. I'm not sure, but Blood on the Tracks was a comeback album for him. But as Bob Dylan even said in one of his later songs, you can always come back, but you can't come back all the way. And so I feel like the end of the '80s, and he did his gospel music, was he was pretty much burnt out completely. And then that's where you have him come back in, I think, '88. He did MTV Unplugged. And then in I want to say '97, he came out with a Grammy Award winning album, um, Time Out of Mind, which I think was his final comeback, if you might say. And he had two albums that were pretty good: Time Out of Mind and Love and Theft. And he still was still around playing and doing stuff, but yeah, he's had an amazing career, and it's been a weird career because, like you say, like he just kept making songs and music, even when he wasn't popular, even when they weren't selling well. He kept just reinventing himself and trying to put stuff out there. But you might say, like some people might say, like, why don't you just wait till you have a good album to put an album out? But Bob Dylan never felt that way. He just kept producing. So
Out of sight, out of mind. So it's admirable that he actually continued to do that. So, which was fine. But anyway, as I was saying, the
sorry if I interrupted. No.
the the documentary was pretty good. I didn't really like the way it was put together
Really?
too much. It seemed kind of
Yeah.
sporadic. And like I said, it wasn't all just about Bob Dylan. They had a lot of stuff around Bob Dylan. And as an English teacher, there's like two poets that I cannot stand, and I'm sorry to anybody out there that loves these poets. It's just my personal opinion. You have to understand that you may love them, and that's fine. But one of them is Allen Ginsberg. I cannot stand him, and the other one I can't stand is Walt Whitman. It drives me crazy. But
No, that's fine.
Leaves of Grass. And the thing about Allen Ginsberg, he just reminds me of like I don't know, a skeezy kind of
Yeah,
guy.
it kind of seems like a faker, kind of in a way. I don't know. I'm being.
Yeah.
It's like
And did you see that one poem that he did where he was and the women that was in the audience was kind of like because he had some like the V word in there
yeah,
and female body part in case you don't know what V
yeah,
word is. And the women were like, "What the heck is he?" And and even I was thinking, "This is like the worst poem I've ever heard."
yeah, yeah. For sure.
And that's about when Bob Dylan was talking about, he was wanting to be a music. Allen Ginsberg wanted to be a musician, but he could write good words. He couldn't write lyrics.
Yeah. I
Yeah, he wasn't a
not a
songwriter.
songwriter. Yeah, no, definitely not. And he was a
Yeah,
weird guy, kind of like that whole.
and there are poets. Yeah, there are poets who think that because they write poetry that it'll equate to lyrics, and it just
Does
doesn't.
not.
Anyway, I'm
No,
sorry.
you're
Go
fine. I
ahead.
was talking too much earlier, and the whole scene with Alan Ginsberg likes to dance was very, very interesting.
Oh God, I had to
Yeah,
turn
it's
away. I
just
had to avert my eyes. It was so
yeah, it's so
cringe.
cringe. I think they probably based that character of Tobias from Arrested
Probably,
Development just completely off Allen Ginsberg. Uh, Patti
probably.
Smith, which is to me was insane. Whenever
What was that story she was telling?
it
I
was
can't
just
remember
so
now, but it was some.
insane.
It was. It was like, oh gosh, it was like I'm trying to think of it because it was bizarre. And I was like, where's she going with
It never really
this?
had a point, I don't think. And also like
There's Scarlett right
yeah,
now. That's
yeah, she's a
Scarlett.
great violinist. I really enjoyed her.
She was good. I liked her. She's the only one I
She
liked
was
really,
on the
other
and
than
she
Bob
is
Dylan.
on the Desire album. That's why I said we could talk about the Desire album. But
Yeah, there he is in whiteface.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's like another thing. Somebody was talking about, like the producer was of the thing was talking about how he was from Europe and he was smoking his cigarette like this European way of ash.
yeah, yeah,
And then
between the
Bob
thing,
Dylan
yeah,
started picking it up and doing that. It made me kind of think that he was just like a guy was kind of like a sponge. Like any idea that popped in his head, he kind of like tried it out to see if it would work. And maybe that's not his whole.
yeah. Anything to be a little different, maybe, I
Yeah, yeah,
guess.
it's kind of interesting. And then there was this conversation that was on video. It was so weird. It's like, he was talking to some girl. I don't even know who he was talking to. It was like they started talking about marriage, and he's like, "You talking about marriage?" He was
Oh
like, "You talking
yeah,
about marriage
yeah.
between man and a woman?" He's like, "No, I mean like mental marriage." Oh yeah,
Mental
mental
marriage,
marriage. I
yeah.
was like, some weird thing. I don't know.
And then the guy was interviewing her. It's like, what were y'all talking about? And he was like really close to her
Yeah, yeah,
face. And I was like, dude,
yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. It's just a
It's
weird kind
but you
of
get up
thing.
into the crowd of people, of the followers and the hanger-ons, and it almost reminded me of like Spinal Tap. Like maybe Spinal Tap watched this movie and they're like, we can make a movie
Yeah,
and just like in
Rob
the
Reiner.
same format and just like and make it like a fake one about a band that doesn't exist, but we'll just talk about stuff like that. And it was all
It kind of was
it
that.
was kind of the Spinal Tap whole vibe of whole everything. Yeah, really weird.
St.
St.
Hubbins, or whatever
Hubbins.
his name was.
Yeah, and they had that one review, and it was only 2 words.
Yeah.
anyways, but I think like if you love Bob Dylan or if you're a Bob Dylan fan, you definitely have to watch the Rolling Thunder review. But I think if you're not a fan of Bob Dylan, you're really gonna be like you're gonna probably not gonna make it through the whole documentary, in my opinion, because it's not like a feature film that's just made for general audience. It's really made for like a music aficionado. I think maybe somebody who's like really into Bob Dylan and likes.
Well, let me say this about Bob Dylan. He is an excellent, great songwriter. There's a lot of
Yeah,
songs out there that people don't even realize that he
yeah.
wrote, like "Lay Lady Lay" and
All
things
along
like
the
that. I mean, he wrote
Watchtower.
"All Along the Watchtower." Of course, "Tambourine Man." Most people know he did that one. There's a ton of them out there, and he's a really great songwriter. The only problem I have with Bob Dylan, I like some of Bob Dylan's songs, but with this particular documentary, after a while, his voice just started grating on me, and that's fine. Um, that happens. I mean, he can still sing. I don't think that he's one of those people that people say, well, he can't sing at all. Well, he can sing. He can. And I've heard songs where he's more melodic. But I don't know. During this time period in '76, a lot of the songs what I was trying to say earlier when I made up that stuff about the
Yeah,
flying
yeah.
toaster and stuff come down, it just seemed like it was stream of consciousness. And that's probably how it was written on purpose. And it just seemed like it was like meandering, had no point kind of thing. The song that I'm talking about is the one where he he was running around with the guy, and then the guy dies, and he pulled the body back into the house,
Oh,
and
are you talking about ISIS? I
yeah,
love that
ISIS.
song, ISIS. It's such a
After a
I
while,
like
I
the
was like,
album version of
whoa.
that song though. Um, I love that song. That's one of my favorites off the
It
album.
just
I like
seemed like he was just making it up as he went
it's
along.
about a guy. Okay, we're talking about Desire now. That we can save that for a thought in the next
We'll save it. We'll
because I want to
save
talk
it.
about that song. But yeah, his voice is really an acquired taste. A lot of people just it's not one of those. Bob Dylan would have laughed him off The Voice if he went on The Voice to be a star.
Oh yeah,
They would have
yeah.
laughed him
Hmm.
off American Idol. It's just not the time of day. It's like what Tom Petty said when he said, "When I grew up, this is before he died, of course." He said, "If you were to say that I got my record deal from a game show, you'd be laughed at." You know,
Right.
it's a different time and age
Yeah.
where people, I think, in a lot of ways, were more maybe a little more open to diversity and of different ways of doing things. I think, but Bob Dylan started as a
Well,
folk singer. Yeah,
Tom Petty, Geddy Lee, probably even John Anderson from Yes. They probably all would have been laughed off of The Voice,
yeah,
and they're all
yeah.
great.
Also, acquired taste. Like a lot of people, Geddy Lee from Rush.
A lot of people don't like Geddy
Yeah,
Lee's voice.
they'll
Yeah.
say, "I can't stand his voice," but people who love Rush, they've gotten accustomed to his voice. And another person you could say that too, that I've heard that same thing about, is Willie Nelson. He's got that
Yeah.
Willie Nelson twang or something, nasal drawl. I don't know. Anyways, but
Yeah.
it is acquired taste, and teach their own. Nobody has to like everything. I don't care. It's not really important. Yeah. But Rolling Thunder Review, I think, is a time of kind of like in the movie. Yeah, I was a spoiler alert, but in the movie Complete Unknown, this is a true thing that Bob Dylan used to tell people, and they used to ask him, "Where'd you learn to play guitar?" And he said, "Well, I learned it in the circus, in the carnival. And I used to work at the carnival, and a guy from such and such place taught me to play a little guitar." And that's a whole lie. He never was in the carnival or anything like that. He just says weird things like that. I feel like this is another picture of, Bob Dylan. He was a great artist. He was tried to be mysterious at times. But nobody can do anything forever. And I think if you're trying to reinvent yourself so many times of reinventing yourself, it might get to be like, it doesn't hit all the time. You're going to reinvent yourself the wrong way. Maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But there are things about the Rolling Thunder Review I enjoyed watching. But to me, a lot of it showed a lot of the fakeness of even music business and stuff, and like people trying to garner attention, or trying to be cool, or I could see the animosity between,
and the hangers on too, that just want to
yeah. And I do know it was interesting because you could tell there's a lot of tension between Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan. Not Joni Mitchell. Keep saying Joni Mitchell. Joan Baez and Bob Dylan, because they dated, and you could tell like their careers went different ways. And Joan Baez helped Bob Dylan actually become a household name, because she covered his songs early on, "Blowing in the Wind" and "The Times Are Changing" and "Mr. Tambourine Man." She covered those before anybody else did, and she gave him credibility. And his career kind of went a different direction than hers. She was really grounded in the folk music protest movement, and he wanted to be more than just protest music. So I think went a different direction. But anyways, I know we're kind of rambling on about this, but I think if you're a Bob Dylan fan, you got to watch the Rolling Thunder Review, and it's on Netflix. But if you're not a Bob Dylan really aficionado, it might be hard to get through that documentary, I will say.
Well, if you're a casual Bob Dylan, if you know enough about him to get in trouble like me, you'd probably enjoy it to a certain extent. There's Ramblin' Jack.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the guy's not even from a cowboy. He was from New Jersey, I heard.
Yeah, no, yeah. But I was interested in the time. If you're interested in the time period,
the 70s,
like 1976, and the kind of music culture and kind of that Club 84 kind of culture type thing.
Yeah.
Not quite that. That was more disco, but that kind of era, then you'd probably enjoy it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I had to fast forward through some of it.
All right. Well, hey, two sides of it. I mean, I like parts of it. There's parts of it that seem kind of just really expose the, I don't know, just the fakeness of show business and music industry and just kind of things. And also, I think today's audience in some ways are more complex and more sophisticated, you might say. And I feel like people in the 70s were probably just hungry for any kind of entertainment, as far as like live entertainment. I could be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like,
well, there was concerts, and there was radio. There wasn't internet. There wasn't,
there was
tablets and cell phones.
There wasn't YouTube. Yeah,
stuff.
I feel like
there wasn't.
I feel
YouTube,
like nowadays, with all the hype and stuff that you have to entertain people, it's not quite as easy.
There was Soul Train and American Bandstand.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I don't know.
I'm just kind of making a joke. There's not a whole lot there. That's the point.
All right. Well, hey, listen. Check out Rolling Thunder Review. I don't know if I can grade this. It just is what it is. It's neither bad nor good. And I wouldn't give it an A or B or an F. It's just a weird production.
I give it a C. It's a strong C.
I might give it a C plus to be more conflicting with you.
And you're more of a fan of Bob Dylan than
I am a big Bob Dylan fan. I just, parts of it was entertaining. And I guess if you want to know more about Bob Dylan, this was just one period of his life. But I did like this next segment. We'll talk about the album Desire by Bob Dylan. And I can tell you what I think of that. There's so many albums by Bob Dylan. He's lived like several careers in music. He's had more lives, more than 9 lives in the music industry, you might say. So, all right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Is that cool? We'll come right back. Here we go. The John Price Collection, books 1 through 5. John Price awoke in a terrible future world where the human civilization and its people were virtually annihilated by the Malicent. The Malicent is a sadistic alien species with superior technology and super strength. Now he must go back in time to stop them with the help of a sentient computer, a humorless android, and a beautiful young nymphomaniac. John Price The Collection, the saga, books 1 through 5, include the first 5 books in the John Price saga. This story contains sci-fi, time travel, alternate history, harem fantasy, alien invasion, men's adventure, sci-fi erotica, and more. Click the QR code and download it today. All right, well, we're back now, and we're talking about Bob Dylan. We talked about the Rolling Thunder review. Sorry, I've had a little bit too much coffee today, guys. Um, Also, I wanted to say a little bit about myself. Cleve and I were talking off the camera just a minute ago. Yeah, so in the '90s, I had this weird phenomenon. I was playing music and writing songs myself, and I had people come up to me and they said, "You remind me of Bob Dylan," and I was like, "Bob Dylan? Who? Who's that?" Yeah, I really didn't know. It was 1992, 93. I didn't know who Bob Dylan was. So when I took a trip to Brownwood, Texas, and to see a girlfriend of mine at the time, and on the way I stopped at a like a mall somewhere, and I found in a value bin I found a copy of Blonde on Blonde, and I listened to it, and my first impression of it was I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. I thought it was stupid. It sounded like bad music because it starts off with that song. Blonde on Blonde starts off with that song. Um, Everybody Must Get Stoned. It's like Rainy Day Women, number 12 and 35 is the name of the song, but it's everybody must get stoned, and the stone you when you try to be so good. It has a tuba and a really sloppy drum kick and everything. So I didn't understand it, but I think Bob Dylan was trying to make a little bit of a joke. But so Bob Dylan grew on me. It took What happened was I was driving from Brownwood back to where I live in close to Houston, and it was like I want to say like a 10-hour drive or 6 or 7 hour drive, and my radio didn't work, and that was like the main CD that I had with me, and so I listened to it over and over, and about like the third or fourth listen, I really started to get it. I was like, oh, this is on purpose. Kind of like he's not terrible. He's doing certain things a certain way, and I got into it. I really got into it. What happened to me is I got too into Bob Dylan. I got really weird. You're not going to be popular if you're too into Bob Dylan in 1995 or going for it. Anyways, so
No, that's what I did basically with Rush. You know, I used to hate Rush when I was back in the '80s and '90s. I was like, oh, this is terrible, and then I gave him another chance, and now I'm a huge Rush fan. I love Rush.
yeah, and I had a friend of mine, Rick Kios, who's a bass player, and he was actually really into Rush too. I like Rush too, but it wasn't my thing. But I can't. Especially like the songs about Rush that aren't on the radio because they have like two songs that always get played on the radio. It's like Tom Sawyer and
Yeah,
maybe Spirit of Radio, but that's the only ones I ever hear.
Tom Sawyer, Spirit of Radio, and Limelight.
Yeah, Limelight. But Yeah, so we're not talking about Rush today, well, even though we sort of did, but we were talking about the
Well, we're equating it to what
right,
we are talking
exactly. It's
about.
it's very valid. So we were actually talking about off camera how grating Bob Dylan's voice is to some people, but that could be said as well about Geddy Lee. Or some people will just and today the lead singer of Coheed and Cambria, I've heard, oh, I can't stand his voice. What is the guy's name? I slipped my mind for a second. I'll remember it in a second. Um, Coheed and Cambria has that really kind of a different voice. But it's all acquired taste. I've heard the same thing about Willie Nelson. It really just depends on who you're talking to.
John Anderson from
Yeah.
Yes is that way, and also the lead singer Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin. Some people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't heard that as often, but yeah, I probably have heard that before as well.
Well, I've heard that because of oh, I can't think of the name of that band. Gretchen.
Hmm.
Oh, you know what
You
I'm talking
told me about
about.
him, yeah, and I listened to him. I want to say Gretchen Thunderberg, but that's not right.
That's not right. But yeah, why can't I remember this stuff?
We'll remember
But
it.
yeah, they're a modern band, a current
Yeah.
band. Anyway, yeah, it sounds anyway. Yeah.
So,
Now I'm gonna have to look that
so
up.
the album Desire came on right after a Rolling Thunder review, and some of the songs that are on Rolling Thunder review were sung by Bob Dylan in the documentary. Um, I just want to say the first track of Desire is a song called The Hurricane, and I have a really weird opinion about that song. Is It's a protest song about this boxer who got thrown in prison, and a lot of people said he didn't. There was no evidence, and that he was unjustly. Is I think his name is Hurricane Carter, Robert Hurricane Carter, or maybe I'm having wrong. Hurricane Carter, but I can't think of his first name right now. But I liked that song, "The Hurricane," when I first heard it because it's a very poignant story about injustice or whatever. But
Hmm.
from my standpoint, after you've heard the song a few times, it's musically kind of annoying. I just find that one song, and also the bass line is really repetitive. Now, so for me, the album begins with track two, which we've already talked about. I don't think Cleve likes that song, "ISIS," but tell me what you thought about the first song on. Did you remember that song "Desire"? It's a protest song about the hurricane. Do you remember that one or no?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I've listened to it, and I've got Apple Music up on this other computer, and I listened to it before we started the podcast. And Hurricane's okay. I mean, I think I probably like it better than ISIS. I mean, I don't dislike ISIS. It's just it seems like when I was listening to it on the
Yeah.
review, to me it sounded like he was just making up as he went along.
Funny thing is, I love the lyrics from ISIS because it's such a funny thing. It's like, uh,
It's a story.
it's
It's a
like
complete story.
I
Yeah.
married ISIS on the first day of May, but I couldn't hold on to her very long. So I packed up my pony and I rode straight away to the wide open country. I was, I met a man. He said, "Do you want to find something that's easy to catch?" And he's like, "I think I'm not reading these lyrics. I'm just remembering them, so I might read them all wrong." But he says, "I was thinking about diamonds. I was thinking about gold. I was thinking about ISIS. How she said I was so reckless." But anyway, so he goes up there and finds out this guy's
Yeah.
looking for a dead body, and he's like, "When I took up his offer, I must have been insane." I don't know why. I just thought it was a cool song. It's just like a funny song because this guy's thinking he's
Yeah.
going for treasure, but he's actually just going to pick up maybe a bounty hunter's dead body for a
Yeah.
bounty or something.
And like I said, when I was watching him sing it, and I was like, "Is he just making this up as he goes along?" But because it seemed like so much
Yeah,
in the song, it's got so many lyrics. I was like, it just I knew he didn't. I knew he didn't make
yeah.
it up as he went
But a
along.
lot of the lyrics, like of his songs, are it's not the way you write songs anymore, because a lot of songs nowadays, uh, a lot of songs now are chorus verse, but if you listen to the lyrics on ISIS, there's no chorus. It's just long verses. So it's not there's
Right.
no like the way pop music has gotten us trained is like you have intro, verse, chorus, or intro, pre-chorus, verse, and this is
Bridge.
yeah, bridge or something like that. I heard they don't even do bridges anymore, Cleve. That was like totally last year or something. I don't know. But but so it's all just a lot of lyrics, long lyrics, and it doesn't have any chorus. It just goes on and on. So I guess
Mm.
I agree with you because it sounds like he's just making stuff up and he's never coming to an end because
Yeah, it reminded me of have you seen Dewey Cox?
Yeah, I get
The
it.
where they're doing the Bob Dylan part of Dewey Cox. They were parodying Bob Dylan,
Yeah,
and he was singing that
but it just seems like he's just singing a
stream of
story. It's like
consciousness.
she was there in the meadow where the creek used to rise, blinded by sleep and in need of a bed. I carried her from the east with the sun in my eyes. I cursed her one time, then I rode on ahead. Said, where have you been? I said, no place special. Said, you look different. I said, well, I guess. She said, you've been
Oh
gone. I
yeah,
said,
that's it.
that's only natural. She said, you gonna stay? I said, yeah, I might too. Isis, oh Isis, you mystical child, what drives me to you is what drives me insane. I still can remember the way that you smiled on the 5th day of May in the drizzling rain.
I think he's singing it right now behind you.
Probably so. That's weird. But I actually do like Isis. That's one of those songs I do like. It's different. It's different. There's a lot of songs on here that I didn't like. I don't know. Like this is a weird album. I like Mozambique a little bit. I like one song I do like on here is "One More Cup of Coffee for the Road."
I like that one. That's one of the like. That's the only song. Well, that No Sister was
That little
okay.
sister was okay. Sarah's really sad, and this is a true song he wrote for his wife Sarah when he was trying to get her back. So I heard that he wrote that song for her and invited her to the studio when he recorded it, and they said it was dead silence when he was doing it, and then she had no emotion and she walked out afterwards, and yeah. So, but that's a
Hmm.
true story. So, uh, he was married about 7 times, Bob Dylan, and
Really?
yeah, his private life is very private. There's not a whole lot known about it, but like he was either married to one of his backup singers or at least date. And I might be wrong about the marriage thing, but he has had a long list of wives and girlfriends. I was looking that up the other day,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Hmm.
Desire came out in 1976. Um, what else about it? It's was on Columbia Records. Well, if I go to his, I don't know. It did have the violinist on the almost the whole record, the one who's on that video on the Rolling Thunder review.
Yeah, Scarlett. Scarlett. Can't remember her last name now,
Yeah,
but
Scarlett. I don't remember. Sounds bad. It might. Is that playing on your side?
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mean to start that. It was me playing it. Okay, sorry. No, yeah, there's a lot of good. I enjoyed the album. This isn't his best album, but sadly, I have to tell you, this is not his worst album. So if you're wondering, there are some worse ones. I can't think of which one I would say was his absolute worst album. Scarlet Riviera is her name.
Yeah, Scarlett Riviera. Should remember that.
Yeah, I wonder why he didn't play any more with her because that was a pretty good little thing he had going.
Hmm.
So Roger McGuinn ultimately became one of the Byrds last chest. So Roger McGuinn was in the Byrds, I guess.
Hmm.
Interesting.
One person I know in the Birds was well, the Yardbirds was never mind.
Different band.
Yeah, I was thinking of
Okay, so chronologically,
somebody else.
the Basement Tapes were made. The Basement Tapes was made with. That's a whole other thing. That's a weird album. Desire was made in 1976. Then he had another album. A Hard Rain came out in 76. Masterpiece came out in 78. And then he had Street Legal. And Street Legal, that was probably one of his worst albums. And then Bob Dylan
Hmm.
at Boudica in 79, which is like a live album. And then he has Slow Train Coming that in 1979, which was a religious album. And then he had Saved in 1980. He had Shot of Love, another gospel album, in 81. And then he had Infidels, which was like his coming back to rock and roll. But I think he had really lost himself by that point. Because when he did do his gospel music, all his gospel music fans, people who like gospel music, actually hated his. They didn't want him to play any wicked worldly music, and then all of his other fans really didn't care for the gospel music. So it's just at the time put him in a bad situation. Of that, of the 83 album, I actually picked up a vinyl record somewhere of Infidels, and it's probably one of his worst albums. Got that like sometime in the '90s, just because it was at a thrift store or something. It did have one song that was somewhat good. It was called Joker Man, which it was kind of compared to any of his other songs. Joker Man was kind of '80s are weird. It's a weird time period
Well, about
for
around the
him.
year 2000 or around 2000, let's see.
He just kept making music though, even during this whole time. He has an album called
Wait, it was
There's so many albums I haven't even listened to his. Some of them.
around 2000 or something. He got an award. He like won an Academy Award or something for a song.
No, he.
That was a good song, and I can't remember what that
Are you
was.
thinking about things have changed? No, he had
Or it was maybe on a
well,
movie or something. He got an award.
in
I can't remember what for.
'97 he won a Grammy for his album. Um, he won a Grammy from Time Out of Mind.
Mm.
And that was I'm looking at his discography. I mean, he's got dozens of albums I've never listened to. I mean, find myself as a Bob Dylan fan, but he's got just a lot of weird stuff out here that he was on or credited for, but I don't see. This is the Grateful Dead. They're showing some Grateful Dead stuff. I don't know why I'm looking at that right now. Where's that? Time Out of Mind. But I think that song you're talking about is "Things Have Changed." I think he had something for that. '97, "Time Out of Mind." He won several Grammys for that. What did he win? He won 3 Grammys, including Album of the Year. I don't know what the other ones were.
Let's see.
But Bob Dylan's had a huge career, but not all of his albums have been winners.
Yeah. Oh yeah, things have changed. I guess that's
Yeah,
it. He got a Golden Globe in 2001. That's what I'm thinking of.
that's a good song. It's a really good song. Time
Oh yeah, he got the Academy Award. Things have changed. That I was right. He got the Academy Award for that song
for it being on a movie.
and the Golden Globe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that song. It's a good song. Things have changed. He is also off Time Out of Mind. He had good songs like "It's Not Dark Yet," but it's getting there. That was a single, and "Lovesick." But yeah, I love that album. For me, that was more in my time period. 1997 is when I really started really getting into music. So that was something fresh for me, and to listen to it. Every song on that album, "Time Out of Mind," is really good. It's not all of it's just, but it's a different Bob Dylan. It's not the same Bob Dylan from the Rolling Thunder Review, and it's not the same Bob Dylan from the movie the Complete Unknown. He has been probably a dozen different people in his lifetime, so which is great. Who can say that? So I've rambled a bit. Any other things you want to add about that I maybe have overspoke about?
No, I think we interchanged it.
Yep.
My cat.
So, I mean, just in general, I know like we talked about Desire, that album, but really, I guess we're just talking about Bob Dylan, his career spanning from 1960 till today. Actually, I don't know what Bob Dylan's doing right now, but I saw something live of his not too long ago, and it was a little hard to listen to be quite honest. He's like an elderly man, still singing. It's just different. Maybe I have to give it a second listen, but he's still playing, and he's 83, so he's doing more music than I'm doing at 83. He's looking a little older though. He is, but like Willie Nelson's still making music, and Willie Nelson's even older.
He's in his 90s.
Yeah, Willie Nelson's in his 90s. Yeah. Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, Bob Dylan had something going on. I can't remember, but yeah, it's an amazing career. I don't know how else to end this one on a Bob Dylan. Everybody must get stoned. Every stone you like, you might be good.
Like a rolling stone.
Yeah, once upon a time, just so fine through the bums down, ain't proud in you. Come call, say, beware, dog, say you're bound to fall. You thought they were all kidding you, didn't you? You used to laugh about everybody else was hanging out. Now you don't act so proud. Now you don't seem so proud about having me scrounging around for your next meal. Kind of sounds like an auction. I'm trying to do an impersonation of Bob Dylan and an auctioneer smashed together, I guess. All right. Well, hey, we're going to come back soon. Sorry I rambled a lot today. Too much coffee. We're going to starting a new channel. If you guys have any suggestions or things you want us to review about, any questions about Cleve's cat, Shadow, please post them in the comment. Yeah, we're going to start a new channel. Cleve and Merrick take over the world. We'll be sending you links and everything else, and we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. We're going to be reviewing, we're going to be talking about flops at the box,
Excellent.
and all kinds of good stuff. So thanks for listening, and I guess
Thank you.
please subscribe to our channel. And I'm gonna lay off the coffee next time a little bit. Sorry.
Thank you, guys.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Merrick NHL Rick podcast. Please like and subscribe to this channel. We'll see you next week. Thank you.